Did you see the reporting on Tom Homan accepting? Okay.
Just remember, next time some clown in the YouTube comments or over on Facebook or on the Nazi Twitter or wherever you are on social media, maybe it'll be in your real life. But just remember, next time some shitbird tries to claim that Biden weaponized the DOJ, you should remind them that Merrick Garland was the Attorney General. Did a terrible job as Attorney General. Merrick Garland did not in any way weaponize the DOJ. Because if he had, this case would have been publicized. The accepting of a $50,000 cash bribe, reportedly on the part of Tom Homan, would have been news. They did not. They also didn't release the Epstein files that would have hurt Donald Trump. Obviously, it would have hurt Donald Trump. Otherwise, the contents of the Epstein files would be released right now. In no way did Biden weaponize the Department of Justice against Donald Trump. If anything, and I'm going to get to this, if anything, they gave Donald Trump chance after chance after chance. The benefit of the doubt, the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of the doubt. Over and over and over and over. Merrick Garland sat on his hands and did not appoint a special counsel to investigate the attempted overthrow of the United States government. In no way was the Biden DOJ weaponized against criminal, convicted felon, insurrectionist Donald Trump. It's just, we live in a world right now where if you criticize Donald Trump, the dear leader, you face consequence. You have your free speech rights violated by the government, effectuating the firing of late night hosts and comedians who just make jokes about the dear leader. But if you accept bribes, you're rewarded with high and lofty positions within the administration. Here, let's start with this. Here's Donald Trump being asked. Of course, he knows everything. He's on top of everything. There's nothing that gets by Donald Trump unless it happens to be something he doesn't want to talk about. Then it's, what is this? I'm hearing about this for the first time. Watch Donald Trump deny that he's been briefed or seen the reporting on his border czar accepting a cash bribe of $50,000.
Did you see the reporting on Tom Homan accepting, on UNGA for the UN? Could you say which leaders you're going to meet with at the UN?
Nobody believes that. Let me say this. Let me play one more very brief clip, 15 seconds or so. The press pool is just being filled to the brim with sycophants asking preordained questions, briefed Donald Trump. He knows what's going to be asked. Watch this. At the end of it, when he's getting ready to walk to Marine One, the helicopter that he travels on, and he's being asked, are you tired of winning yet? And then at the very end, a reporter is like, thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. Who are these people? Not journalists, to be sure.
Are you tired of winning yet? You get tired of winning yet? Not that tired. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your service. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your service. Thank you, sir. If only we could have had a camera trained on that lady, there likely would have been tears in her eyes as she thanked the dear leader for his service to destroying the country. Here are a couple of headlines. Here's one from The Guardian. Trump border czar Tom Homan reportedly accepted $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents. Alleged handoff occurred before Trump won second presidency, after which administration killed the federal corruption case. Now, I'm going to read a headline from MSNBC. I'm going to read from this article, but you need to know that this was caught on tape. That we need to have some intrepid patriot out there who works for the Department of Justice, who's still there, release this video of Tom Homan. It'll probably be grainy in a hotel room footage, but I want to see it. I want to see the guy, the mush-mouthed dildo with ears who has never had anything but negative to say about Democrats and migrants and anybody who is just perceived as an opponent of Donald Trump, act like he's so above it all, accepting a $50,000 bribe. Here's the headline from MSNBC. Tom Homan was investigated for accepting $50,000 from undercover FBI agents. Trump's DOJ shut it down. The FBI and justice officials closed the investigation, which a Justice Department appointee had called a deep state probe in early 2025. Donald Trump makes the claim all the time that he is singularly targeted, unfairly treated. It's just unfair, he wails like a toddler. When he had his cases dismissed and acts like they had no merit, that it was a deep state thing. It was a whole phony deal. We're going to get to a quote later about that. But this is from the article. In an undercover operation last year, the FBI recorded Tom Homan. Now the White House borders are accepting $50,000 in cash after indicating he could help the agents who were posing as business executives win government contracts in a second Trump administration, according to multiple people familiar with the probe and internal documents reviewed by MSNBC. The FBI and the Justice Department planned to wait to see whether Homan would deliver on his alleged promise once he became the nation's top immigration official. But the case indefinitely stalled soon after Donald Trump became president again in January, according to 6 sources familiar with the matter. In recent weeks, Trump appointees officially closed the investigation after FBI Director Kash Patel requested a status update on the case, 2 of the people said. It's unclear what reasons FBI and Justice Department officials gave for shutting down the investigation. Is it unclear, MSNBC? It's unclear. Who knows? I guess we'll never know why the Trump administration shut down the investigation. Really, MSNBC? It's unclear. We're not sure. Who will never know? I guess you could just swing a dead cat and see what it hits, and then I guess that's the reason. A benefit of the doubt that no longer needs to be given. Thank you, MSNBC. But a Trump Justice Department appointee called the case a deep state probe in early 2025, and no further investigative steps were taken, the sources say. And then get a load of this. This is the last paragraph. The federal investigation was launched in western Texas in the summer of 2024 after a subject in a separate investigation claimed Homan was soliciting payments in exchange for awarding contracts should Trump win the presidential election, according to an internal Justice Department summary of the probe reviewed by MSNBC and people familiar with the case. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of Texas, working with the FBI, asked the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section to join its ongoing probe, quote, into the border czar and former acting director of Immigrations and Custom Enforcement, Tom Homan, and others, based on evidence of payment from FBI undercover agents in exchange, quid pro quo, in exchange, it's a bribe, in exchange for facilitating future contracts related to border enforcement. These people want to profit from the administration. A fish rots from the head down or whatever. And that's what's happening here. Donald Trump is wildly profiting from the presidency, and all of his underlings, including the mush-mouthed dildo with ears, Tom Homan, they want in on that action too. Why can't I get rich too? Look, $50,000. Not a great deal of money, not going to make him rich by any means, but you take a few $50,000 bribes here and there, and it very quickly can become real money that could, enrich him, I guess. But again, when someone tells you that the DOJ was weaponized against Donald Trump, remind them of all of the different things that could have become public that there was a choice made not to. Now, we can debate what those reasons are and the legitimacy of them, but let's end on this note. You know how they always say, well, we can't do that because then Republicans will blah, 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 blah. We can't act like that because then it'll give Republicans permission to be the worst versions of themselves. They don't need permission. We can't do away with the filibuster because then Republicans will do that. They did it without even the Democrats doing that. Stop acting as though whatever we do, the Republicans will finally get the idea to do it. They're going to be the worst versions of themselves. They're going to be corrupt. They're going to treat the DOJ as though it's the weaponization arm of Donald Trump's wildest fantasies, whether or not we treat the DOJ like that. They're not avoiding impropriety. They're avoiding the appearance of impropriety, the appearance of bias. They weren't biased. In fact, Merrick Garland went out of his way to appoint Republicans to investigate Donald Trump, Republicans to investigate Joe Biden. They weren't avoiding bias or impropriety. They were avoiding the appearance that we just don't want anybody to think that we're trying to do the wrong thing here. They said weakly and meekly. While insurrectionists ended up off the hook. Donald Trump ended up off the hook. Tom Homan ended up off the hook. Thank you, Merrick Garland. Thank you for your service, sir. Betrayal of America, betrayal of American ideals, of the things that we aspire to be, allowing a fascist jerk-off in Donald Trump to come back into power and destroy our country along with our democracy and the rule of law, shitting all over the Constitution every step of the way. Anyway, what do you think? I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollemore.com. I expect to get dissent because anytime that I criticize a Democratic appointee or a Democratic DOJ or Joe Biden's picks or anything else, people get a little squirrely. They get a little irritated. But I'm going to level criticism where it's needed, and it certainly was needed there. So hopefully, when we have a Democratic president once again, we can behave differently. We can start acting like we want to start winning things, that we want to start dealing with reality on reality's terms. Anyway, I'm ranting again. I love and appreciate you very much. If you feel the spirit move you and you want to help support this work, help produce this work, please consider becoming a channel member on YouTube. You can click the join button below the video or just on my channel, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another. There are so many different angles to this story, but let's start here. Donald Trump is so addled. I mean, look, it's one thing when you have a president who's a little on the older side, not in touch with technology. We see this all the time in like Senate committee hearings where they're talking about Bitcoin and the blockchain, and they have no idea what they're talking about. The internet for them was like frozen in time in like 1998. There's a lot of these guys that probably still use Windows 95 on their computer, right? I mean, it's not great. It's one of the reasons why we, as the electorate, I'm not saying set age limits. I think that's unconstitutional and it's ageist and it's shitty because you certainly have people out there who are sharp as a tack, who are leading, like Bernie Sanders, for instance. But as the electorate, we need to be doing a better job of picking winners and losers and stop electing these old, out of touch individuals who are creating policy for a septuagenarian electorate constituency when the vast majority of people are, 30 something. So I say all that to say this. I think this message from Donald Trump that I'm getting ready to read, this Pam post on True Social, this one here, I think this was meant to be a DM. I think this may be meant to be a text, just a private message to Pam Bondi, and it ended up getting posted. I mean, it reads like that, certainly. But Donald Trump right now is using the weight of the federal government to weaponize the DOJ against Democrats. He's dispatching the attorney general, who's supposed to be independent, fiercely independent, an arbiter of justice, an administrator of justice. He's directing her to go after Democrats. He's putting in place his, like, yanked from like an 80s teen movie, Lindsay Halligan as the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who, by the way, is someone who thinks that we'll get to those clips. We'll get to that. She's just a random talking head that he happens to like, because I guess she's sexy to him or something, because, you know, she's got the whole MAGA look going on. But get a load of this. Supposed DM is what we think from Donald Trump to Pam Bondi. Pam! I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially, same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done, unquote. So Donald Trump is saying he's reviewed statements and posts. He's going through Truth Social, maybe Twitter, certainly not Blue Sky or some other normal platform. He's looking on the Nazi Twitter and the Nazi Truth Social and seeing posts that he thinks need the attention of the Attorney General of the United States of America and the head of the Department of Justice. Gotcha. Then we almost put a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who is never going to do his job. That's why two of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him. He didn't quit. I fired him. He didn't quit. I fired him. No, you're not. You can't quit. I fire you. I fire you. This is the president of the United States of America. Good job, MAGA. No, I fired him, and there is a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Look, all the lawyers I see on Fox News, they agree with me. They say so too. Confirmation bias run amok here. Lindsay Halligan, you'll get to know her a little bit better in a second. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. Apparently, that's the part of the resume that really matters whether you get hired by the Attorney General of these United States. It's whether the person likes the Attorney General, likes Donald Trump. We know it's loyalty-based, certainly. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. Sorry, buddy, that's gone a long time ago. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now, declares Donald Trump, President DJT. Let me read to you a couple of headlines here. 3, I think. Politico. Trump says U.S. attorney should be fired after not prosecuting New York Attorney General Letitia James. The president endorsed the removal of Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert after he reportedly failed to charge James with mortgage fraud. He didn't fail to. There was just no evidence of it. And he says, look, I'm not going to use this department. I'm not going to use the Eastern District of Virginia as Donald Trump's personal vendetta service. There wasn't enough evidence, said the U.S. attorney for that district. And no, I'm not going to bring a case. The Daily Beast, Trump plots to fire prosecutor for failing to charge his nemesis. Administration officials want New York Attorney General Letitia James prosecuted despite a lack of evidence. And then here, we'll bring it full circle, up to date. Here's the local affiliate here in Washington, D.C., WUSA 9. He didn't quit. I fired him. Trump withdraws U.S. attorney nomination over Letitia James investigation. Eric Siebert, who has served as the top federal prosecutor since January, has been told to resign or face termination, according to the Associated Press. Now, Donald Trump came out wearing his stupid tux, and he was asked about this. Are you criticizing Pam Bondi in your post? And then he rambles. And then we're going to get to the other tweet where he names Lindsay Halligan. And then I will do my civic duty and remind you who the time machine possessing, loving of the 80s, or at least the look of the 80s, Lindsay Halligan actually is. Watch this.
Mr. President! Mr. President! Mr. President! Hello, hi!
No, I just want people to act. They have to act, and we want to act fast. You know, they were ruthless and vicious. I was impeached twice. I was indicted 5 times. It turned out to be a fake deal, and we have to act fast. One way or the other. One way or the other. They're guilty. They're not guilty. We have to act fast. If they're not guilty, that's fine. If they are guilty, or if they should be charged, they should be charged. And we have to do it now.
What a weird way to phrase that, no? You know, they were ruthless and vicious. I was impeached twice. I was indicted 5 times. It turned out to be a fake deal. What do you mean it turned out to be a fake deal? If you didn't do the crimes, it didn't turn out to be fake. It was fake from the get-go. This guy just gives up the game every single time he opens his flapping mouth. It turned out to be... Your language, sir, with tears in my eyes, I must confess, gives the game away, Donald Trump. So he did indeed name Lindsay Halligan through official decree. You know, the government runs on the posts of Donald Trump, and this is how you do it. He says, it's my honor to appoint Lindsay Halligan, who has been serving as special assistant to the president at the White House as United States Attorney for Eastern District of Virginia. Lindsay is tough, smart, loyal attorney, loyal to Donald Trump. You'll get to see that in a second again. A loyal attorney who has worked with me for a long time, including in winning fight against the weaponization of our justice system by crooked Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats, which she witnessed firsthand when she stood up for my rights during the unconstitutional and un-American raid on my home, Mar-a-Lago, in Palm Beach, Florida. Unconstitutional? A warrant was issued by a federal judge. It was not unconstitutional, illegal, or even improper, you ghoul. Anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of this fucking nonsense, but let's do this. He did sign it, by the way, Make America Great Again, and President Donald J. Trump, so you know it's serious. So you know he really means it. When I was in Boise a few weeks ago, prior to getting the old COVID, I talked about Lindsay Halligan and about Donald Trump's assault on history and the Smithsonian Institution. And there was a clip from Newsmax. I'm not going to play the whole clip, but I want to give you a flavor for who Donald Trump is putting into a very high, important position because he wants someone sufficiently stupid and loyal. I think you have to have a little stupidity to be loyal to Donald Trump. He's putting someone so stupid and loyal to Donald Trump in that position that we know she'll just do whatever he says. It's another Alina Habba type situation. Right? He can't find someone sufficiently disloyal to the rule of law, so he just goes and finds his personal attorneys. Here she is explaining to these Newsmax hosts that the Smithsonian is like the foundation of our education system in America. Yikes.
Can you expand on what the president wants to see inside the Smithsonian and ultimately others as well?
Of course, yeah. So the president wants to see more positivity, more patriotism. We live in the greatest country in the world, and our Smithsonian Institution, which is really the foundation of our education system as a whole and is over 70% funded by taxpayers, should reflect American exceptionalism. And a good example, you know, a lot of the placards that I've seen when I've gone through the various museums, almost every single placard next to an artifact pushes an ideological or political narrative.
The foundation of our education system as a whole, she says. Why is it I have a hankering for some 80s music when I look at her talk? I don't know. Here's another one, by the way, the anti-democratic, the absolutely pushing the lie that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Here she is on Steve Bannon's show. This is back in 2022 or 2023. And she's really not changed the look or the Trump loyal message. Watch this.
CNN branded President Trump as a liar and referred to his questions regarding voter fraud as the big lie, which is actually linked to Adolf Hitler. So it's pretty simple. If you're going to call someone a liar, back it up with researched, well-founded facts. Otherwise, don't report it. Don't distort the truth. And as Boris pointed out, CNN responded to our letter today, advising us that they will not retract any of the statements. So they will be getting served with a lawsuit very shortly, I believe.
So
same deal. Lying about the election results of 2020 and lying about CNN and their coverage as though that's an attack on Donald Trump when they report the facts of the matter that Donald Trump lost in grand fashion the election of 2020 against Joe Biden, who got 7+ million more votes than him. And here we have the newly appointed attorney, U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan. What are we going to do here? I don't want to turn every video into a complaint about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, but what are they doing other than demanding meetings with Donald Trump in the White House like that's going to do anything? Other than firing off emails or letters to Donald Trump like that's going to do anything? We still have Democrats voting for Donald Trump's nominees. We still have Democrats voting for legislation that gives Donald Trump immense power relative to law enforcement and ICE in this country. We still have Democrats voting to honor Charlie Kirk, a racist, Christian nationalist bigot, turning October 14th into some day of honor for a white supremacist. People I respect are on that list of people who voted for that. What are we doing, Democrats? What are we doing as Democrats? We don't want to appear to be... Stop. Start leading. Start demanding a better country. Get out there. Put your job in harm's way. Demand to go through ICE facilities and inspect them, as is your right, as is your duty under the Constitution and our laws statutorily. You have oversight. I don't have oversight. I don't even have a vote in Congress being from Washington, living in Washington, D.C. I have no power in this. You do. You're an elected representative of the people's house. Do your job. Stop all of this from happening. Anyway, I want to hear from you. You can sound off wherever you're watching this video in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line and leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me as always, daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another. Uh-oh! After all of this that came after the killing of Charlie Kirk, all of this blaming they did this, they killed him, they martyred Charlie Kirk. All of this talk about the left and Democrats being at the tip of the spear in this attack against free speech, killing Charlie Kirk. Now, when the rubber hits the road and it's no longer rhetoric, the DOJ cannot find a link between leftist political attitudes, leftist policy, leftist ideologies, and the shooter. They can't get it done. Look at this headline from the Daily Beast. DOJ, the Department of Justice, can't tie suspected Kirk killer to the left like MAGA wants. Investigators have yet to turn up evidence that suspect Tyler Robinson was connected to any left-wing organizations. Bummer. Bummer for Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and by extension, Donald Trump and the rest of the ghouls who pledged vengeance and retribution for the killer against the Democratic Party. There's been talk of turning the Democratic Party, labeling it, designating it a domestic terrorist organization. Stephen Miller called us a radical domestic organization. Is that what he said? A domestic extremist organization. I got too many notes all over my desk because there's too much to talk about, too much to cover relative to them turning an unfortunate and horrific event to their political advantage. And that, what I just said, is what got Jimmy Kimmel fired. And, making fun of Donald Trump for not giving a shit about Charlie Kirk, while claiming that he was like a second son, the second son of Donald Trump said. Get a load of this. There is nothing to suggest that the suspected killer of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, was connected to any quote, left-wing groups, according to investigators looking into the killing. 3 Justice Department officials working on the case spoke with NBC News, and one said, quote, thus far, there is no evidence connecting this suspect with any left-wing groups, unquote. They added there is, quote, every indication that this was one guy who did one really bad thing because he found Kirk's ideology personally offensive. He wasn't Antifa, even though that's not an organization, that's an ideology. He wasn't Democratic Socialists of America. He wasn't the Democratic Party. He was just one guy who didn't like Charlie Kirk. The officials also voiced that it would be difficult to bring federal charges against Robinson, as Robinson allegedly committed the crime in Utah and is a resident of the Beehive State. Furthermore, Kirk was an influencer activist and not an elected official. The Justice Department spokesman officially declined to comment on the case as an ongoing investigation. That's interesting. Anytime they want that journalists want follow-up on the things that have been said by the Department of Justice officials and investigators, they clam up. They only want to give what they want to give. They only want to read this questionable text exchange between purportedly, ostensibly between Tyler Robinson and the roommate. They want to give all the information that's going to suit their narrative so the dipshit governor of Utah can go out there, a man who once pledged to protect the trans community, who's now out there demonizing them on a daily basis. Just another elected liar, Republican Mormon. Disgusting, these people, from Jason Chaffetz to Mike Lee to Spencer Cox, jackass extraordinaire, governor of Utah. Kirk's murder is being used by the Trump administration to threaten crackdowns on left-wing groups. White House Deputy Chief of Staff vowed vengeance. White House Deputy Chief of Staff, that's Stephen Miller, by the way, vowed vengeance on the left on the first episode of the Charlie Kirk show since the assassination, saying left-wing organizations amounted to a vast domestic terror movement. Quote, with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people, Stephen Miller told Vice President J.D. Vance, who was guest hosting Kirk's podcast. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name. Yet, the DOJ, that same Department of Justice, cannot find a link between Tyler Robinson and any left-wing organization. Cry your buckets of tears, you seething cowards. Trump also voiced his desire to label Antifa a domestic terror organization. It is unknown how the Trump administration intends to crack down on left-wing groups. Antifa is not a formal organization, but rather an ideology that is associated with some small activist groups. Antifa does not have a leadership structure or base of operations. That's because Antifa stands for anti-fascist. Aren't you anti-fascism? If so, I guess you're Antifa. Right-wing groups have been responsible for over 10 times more terror attacks than left-wing groups since 2002, according to a study conducted by the ADL. The Justice Department recently found similar numbers in its own study. It recently scrubbed that study from its website, which I talked about last week. Look, this isn't going to stop them, certainly. This news that they are unable to find linkage between left-wing groups and the suspected killer, it's not going to stop them. They're still going to go after the Democratic Party. They're still going to try to designate you as a domestic terrorist if you're a member of the Democratic Party. They're very likely, I mean, look, where are we going to be in 6 months? But they're trying to, if they do designate the Democratic Party as a domestic terror organization, they will be able to stop political donations. They'll be able to stop fundraising. They'll be able to indict and arrest people who are Democrats. And that's what they wanted to do the entire time. Donald Trump has signaled this in posts after post after post after post during the election. that people who donated to Kamala Harris will be held accountable, up to and including jail, he said. So, I mean, come on. Anyway, I want your opinion on this. I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. Please do that. You can also call the voicemail line and leave me a brief voicemail. Leave them brief, please. 714-576-4054. And of course, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. If Google Voice is cutting you off because you spoke for 3 minutes, that's too long. Because remember, I gotta listen. It takes a lot of my time, the beginning of my day as I drink my coffee, to listen to voicemails. Anyway, I want to hear them, but yeah, do me a favor, keep them brief. If you want to help support this work, you want to help produce these videos with me, reaching millions of people, sometimes tens of millions every single month. I guess now that we're on Facebook, go follow that Facebook page. It's certainly tens of millions of people. I would love to have you help me produce this content. Click the join button below this video on YouTube, or just go to my channel, click the join button, become a channel member for $2 a month. As I lose my place in my head. Fantastic. Big Sunday here. Or you can go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast and help support this work there. $2 a month goes a long way if I'm able to marshal the size of my large and growing audience. If 1% were to take part in $2 a month, man, we could hire correspondents. This could be a vastly different show. I would appreciate your participation very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Take care of one another. I have one clip that I'm breaking up into 2 clips here because it is amazing when you let Donald Trump run his suck, when you allow him to just talk, he tells on himself. He gives up the game, as it were. And I'm going to play this first clip first. Obviously, I'm going to play the first clip first. But the first clip actually happens second. It's 2 moments that are connected, where a woman asks a question, a reporter asks a question of Donald Trump, and she's got 2 things working against her. 1, she's a woman. Donald Trump doesn't respect women. 2, she's a black woman. So it's just double whammy, hatred and disrespect from Donald Trump. He starts yelling at her, "You're being obnoxious. Quiet," he says. And I love her reaction. We'll get to that. That's really that's the cherry on top here. First, though, I want to play what happened second. And that is Jonathan Karl, again, mixing it up with Donald Trump, asking him right after he silenced a woman, squelched her free speech in the Oval Office of the White House. He gets asked a question about attacking free speech. It's pretty glorious. Watch this moment with Jonathan Karl just after Donald Trump told a woman to shut up and be quiet when asking questions.
I'm not going to talk to you until I call on you. So, who else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to settle this free speech question, because you said that you restored free speech in America.
Yeah.
Is that free speech including for people who are harshly critical of you, for your political opponents, for people who say things you don't like?
I've become immune to
treat
it.
you unfairly?
I've become immune to it. There's never been a person that's had more unfair publicity than me, and that's why your network paid me $15 million, or $16 million, I believe, to be exact, George Slopadopoulos. And that's why CBS paid me a lot of money, too. And that's why I sued the New York Times 2 days ago for a lot of money. Because I'm winning. I mean, I'm winning the cases. And the reason I'm winning is because you're guilty, John. You're guilty. ABC is a terrible network, a very unfair network, and you should be ashamed of yourself. NBC is equally bad. I don't know who's worse. I think they're equally bad. And, you know, for you to stand there and act so innocent and ask me a question like that. But look, you paid a big price because you were dishonest, John. The reason I won that lawsuit was because you were dishonest. You were proven to be dishonest. And so you can't sit back and just say, oh, well, what do you think? You know, like you're some wonderful person. You're not a wonderful person. Frankly, you're a terrible reporter. You know it, and so do I. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do.
All kinds of stuff here. Great question. Great follow-up question. We're going to get to what led to it. You've said you've restored free speech in America. Is that free speech including for people who are harshly critical of you? And Donald Trump says, I've become immune to it. So immune that he is constantly, repetitively filing lawsuits trying to sue the New York Times for $1 billion or whatever insane amount. He sued CBS. He's so immune. Oh, it's just water off a duck's back, y'all. And he says, that's why I sued the New York Times. Yeah, the judge threw that out, bro. I'm winning, Donald Trump says, defying the reality that the rest of us exist in. And for you to stand there and act so innocent and ask me a question like that, the reason I won the lawsuit, what lawsuit? You didn't win a lawsuit. It was settled out of court after CBS cowered to your demands, after ABC unpatriotically cowered to your demands. A judge and a jury didn't rule on it, settled out of court, dipshit. You're a terrible reporter. You know it, and I know it, says our criminal, multi-time indicted, multi-time convicted of felonies President of the United States. Now, what led to this moment was this. Now I'm going to play the first part and watch the disrespect for this black woman, this professional reporter in the room who isn't being obnoxious. She isn't talking out of line. This is the moment in the gaggle after Donald Trump signed. This is at the end of Donald Trump signing executive orders and having his nursemaid, Will Scharf, explain to everyone what Donald Trump is signing because he can't explain it himself. This was the moment that they're supposed to be asking questions, and he doesn't like it. So he tells her to be quiet, starts calling her names. The president of the United States in the Oval Office, in his domain, possessing immense power, is trying to crack down on the speech of a reporter who dares ask him a question.
New Orleans. We have to save New Orleans. Mr. President, when are you going to get we're going to be going into New York too. Yeah. Mr. President, and we're going to be going in quiet. You're really obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I'm trying to ask you, what about your plans?
You are really obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I am asking, what are your plans for Memphis? Many people.
I'm not going to talk to you until I call on you.
What are your plans
so,
for Memphis?
Who else? Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. One, I don't know who that reporter is, but we need more like her. We need more journalists with that kind of gumption. I'm not obnoxious. All I'm trying to do is ask the question. I don't have whatever level of professionalism that she possesses that is just ingrained in her psyche, I don't possess. It would be quiet, you're obnoxious. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You're a Maybe we need more of that. Maybe we need more of that. I don't think so, because she would immediately, the media would be, oh, harumph, this is outrageous. She can't talk to the president that way. He's allowed to call names. He's allowed to issue commands to be quiet. Yet a reporter can't clap back. She didn't. She remained absolutely professional, maybe too professional. Good job. Again, I don't have that. But what's remarkable, the second thing, is that led into the question by Jonathan Karl. I'm so glad that Karl did not ask some question about the economy, that he immediately went into what happened with her having her free speech violated by the government, by Donald Trump, by the president of the United States, and he asked a question about free speech. This should be on the tips of every reporter's lips. This question about free speech, pointing out the hypocrisy of Donald Trump, claiming to have restored free speech and just put an end to government censorship. Because after all, the lifeblood of any reporter's job is the freedom of speech, is the constitutional protection of the First Amendment for them. The only occupation listed in the Constitution is the free and fair press. It was that important to our founders. Donald Trump wants to compare himself to Lincoln, wants to compare himself to George Washington and other pretty universally considered great presidents, as he violates our rights, as he tramples on the Constitution, as he uses this to wipe his ample ass. telling reporters to be quiet and calling them names while sitting behind the Resolute desk. Look, I know I beat the drum all the time of where he's sitting and where he's the building that he's disrespecting, the room in which he is just trampling on the sanctity of. But we all should be bothered by that. You're sitting in the White House. You're you're a public servant. And you're treating people who are doing their jobs to ask, because we can't be in the Oval Office. That's why what they do is special, and we should be protecting them. We should be coming to their defense, because you're not allowed to be in the Oval Office asking questions. I'm not allowed to be in the Oval Office asking questions. So they stand there in our stead to ask the questions that we want the answers to. That's why it's so critical what they do. Instead, Donald Trump fills the room with a bunch of fucking Brian Glenns, a bunch of Marjorie Taylor Greene boyfriends, a bunch of Breitbart reporters who work for anti-Semitic rags, a bunch of New York Post reporters, Wall Street Journal reporters, Fox News morons like Peter Doocy. Too few Jonathan Karls, too few of the woman who I don't even know her name, too few of them. We need more of her and more Jonathan Karls. And I'm done. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you may be watching it. You can also call the voicemail line and leave me a brief voicemail. Please keep them brief. 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. If you appreciate me, if I bring you value on a day-to-day or a video-by-video basis, do two things for me. One, make sure you're subscribed and go like and follow the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily, over on Facebook. That's free. Do those things. But then if you appreciate what I do and I bring you value, only if I bring you, if you just watch my videos like, yeah, he's okay, but I like others more, go support those people. If you like Pac-Man or you like Brian Tyler Cohen or there's some other creator out there who really is your flavor of politics, support that person in independent media. But if it is me, great, awesome. Click the join button below this video on YouTube to become a channel member for $2 a month, or go to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Both those are great ways to help support this work, and I would be forever grateful. Seriously. I love and appreciate you very much. Thanks for your engagement, your organization, and your passion for making this country, and by extension, I believe the world, a better place. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another. Yeah, look, I hear what you're saying. I'm just telling you what she said, that she was invited. And look, if you're handing out invites to heaven, what about, oh, sorry. I got to go, God. I got the YouTube thing. Yeah, all right. Listen, all right. Bye. Have I got a doozy for you today? Cat Kerr, the pink-haired, self-described, self-proclaimed prophetess of God. Not only did she speak to God, as illustrated by the little, what I think to be funny bit, she was invited by the Almighty God to heaven, where she witnessed a gift-giving ceremony, apparently, of God and Charlie Kirk. I mean, look, of all the tickets that are out there right now, this would have been the hottest event, right? And who gets asked? Nobody normal gets asked. It's Cat Kerr. It's so stupid. Who believes this? Even the dipshit that you're going to see interviewing her, you've seen him before, he's just like, wow, that's amazing. And what I really find, now we'll get to that later, it's that wouldn't there be trauma involved if you're invited to go to heaven? The glorious afterlife. And then you're forced to come back to earth with all of you're in the purest of the pure, beyond imagination, beyond explanation. And then you're forced to come back to earth. Wouldn't that be traumatic? Not for Cat Kerr. Don't worry about her. She's got that all under control. Probably because she's been back and forth from heaven so many times. But watch Kat Kerr with a straight face want you to believe that she was invited to heaven and witness the gifts that Charlie Kirk received from God himself.
When I saw him standing next to the Father, he was right there up at the throne with the Father, and there was silence in the throne room at that point. People always come to welcome people there. He was wearing like a tunic outfit, like tunic top and pants. And it was white, and it had gold trimmed all over it.
Do you mean he had a choice and he went and got that? Is that what you're saying?
No, the Father took him. He wanted him to have it. He wanted for a purpose.
Okay.
This is you, and I realize now after seeing this, he was getting part of his reward for what he had done. For all the years he had given himself to rescue people, especially the youth. And then when I saw him turn, he had on a quiver. And that quiver, I knew, there were 1,000 arrows of light in this quiver. And this was part of his reward.
A tunic? Is the styles, the fashion in heaven, did it like freeze in the first century? Are everybody wearing tunics and robes and shit? Or nobody's wearing suits or regular pants? You know, we're all human there, so we wear earthly clothes apparently in heaven. We're not spirits in heaven. We don't take on a different form and a different fashion. No. We're just humans walking around with our arms and our fingers and our legs. It makes total sense. Come on, doesn't it? He's wearing a tunic and a quiver containing 1,000 arrows of light. This was part of his reward. Great. You spread anti-Semitism. You spread hate against the chosen people. So here's your reward. You fomented dissension among the races of individuals that I have created as God. You have maligned black women as being stupid and thieves of their jobs, stealing from white men. Here's your reward, Charlie Kirk. You have called transgender human beings who are a marginalized, underprotected group in this country and the world, you called them an abomination unto God. Here's your reward, Charlie Kirk. What else did Charlie Kirk do? You promoted the white supremacist conspiracy theory, that the great replacement theory. Here's your reward. You called Martin Luther King an awful person, not a good person. Yes. Here's your reward. He's not, look, this is a thing that's happening right now that's like an infection, I think. We've got members of Congress doing the same kind of a thing, trying to deify Charlie Kirk, trying to glorify Charlie Kirk. That's how Right Wing Watch phrases this in their many tweets, which I appreciate. If you appreciate the work that must go into, I'm lucky that there are so many people out there doing the work that I would not be able to do, which is watching Kat Kerr interviews and putting together clips so that people can synthesize and report on this. Right Wing Watch does a great job. I will put a link below. If you have a few dollars, you want to help support their work, please do. But let's go to Troy Nehls, the guy who said, our job is only if Donald Trump says jump, you just do it. You jump. You don't even ask how high. You just start jumping. It's just cult member nonsense.
There's no question he's the leader of our party. So now he's got a mission statement, his mission and his goals and objectives, whatever that is, we need to embrace it. All of it. Every single word. If Donald Trump says jump 3 feet high and scratch your head, we all jump 3 feet high and scratch our heads. That's it. If Donald Trump says terrorists work, period. Because Donald Trump is really never wrong. Think about it. He's never wrong.
And Troy Nehls is trying to convince people in a congressional proceeding, in a committee, that Charlie Kirk was such a righteous, mighty man of God, so noble, so prized, that if he had lived during Jesus' time, he would have been the 13th disciple.
Charlie Kirk was a man of faith, First and foremost, he loved his Lord Jesus. He loved his family. Beautiful wife, beautiful children. Just a remarkable, honorable man that was silenced with this assassin's bullet. I would say if Charlie Kirk lived in the biblical times, he'd have been the 13th disciple. He'd have been the 13th disciple.
And I will remind you of what Rick Joyner said, the 13th disciple. I will remind you of what Rick Joyner said, the pastor, the Christian nationalist ghoul, trying to convince his sermon, his congregation in a sermon that Charlie Kirk, who accomplished more in their mid to early 30s, that no one has done more, accomplished more than Charlie Kirk, except for, maybe Jesus.
And just to honor Charlie Kirk, do you know of anyone in their early 30s that accomplished as much as that man, except for Jesus? I'm just saying.
And again, as nonsense as that is, absolute just jackassery, a bastardization of his faith. He ostensibly knows all of the things that Jesus said about protecting the marginalized and the refugees and poor and children and sick. And he knows all of those things, yet he wants to stand for promoting the deification of Charlie Kirk. Who's done more than Charlie Kirk? But maybe, come on. Bob Onder, we'll finish with this one. I'm not going to play the entire 2-minute and 9-second clip, but here's a very brief clip of Bob Onder not only saying that Charlie Kirk was martyred, but that he wants God to raise up thousands more Charlie Kirks to promote white supremacy and bigotry and hatred and division among God's people.
Charlie was also a martyr for Jesus Christ. The blood of martyrs is the seed of the church. May God raise up thousands of Charlie Kirks to take his place.
All these people act like they have a stranglehold on what God believes. It's an arrogant thing, is it not? It's something I talk about all the time. But how arrogant must you be to think you know the mind of God? I mean, how arrogant there's a lot of things that are arrogant about it, but I don't understand. Coming from this faith tradition, both of these religious individuals, the Kat Kerr and the Rick Joyner, not so much the Republican dipshits who are, just cult members. And I don't mean Christianity as a cult. I mean, they're in the Trump cult. There's this intertwining of their flavor of Christianity and Trumpism that is just an unholy amalgam. But these religious characters, I grew up thinking these people were prophets of God. We had a woman come to our church. Her name was Elaine Baxley. Was there Baxley? I think it was Elaine Baxley, who had a testimony. She went church to church across the country explaining that I went to hell. Oh, and that's what converted her. She's like a Kat Kerr character. And she gave a specific testimony over each one of us who were leaders in the youth group. Shocker, I was leadership in a youth group in high school for Jesus. But I come from this. I can speak to this because these are my people, or they once were my people. And it's weird. If you come from if you're an Episcopalian or a Presbyterian or United Methodist or a Catholic or some other, what I used to consider cultish, that's the foundational doctrinal understanding of Christianity is Catholicism. It's what was first. But I believed that we had it all locked down. And if you come from one of those doctrines, one of those denominations, you don't even have any way to compute this. What is this? This is every day. This is every Sunday. This is Wednesday service. I was a 4 or 5 time church a week kind of a kid. Anyway, rambling. I'm going to go. I would invite you to this conversation. I would love to hear from my fellow nutter evangelicals. That would be great. You can comment below this video. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, you can email me. Where's my tunic? Where's my tunic and my quiver filled with 1,000 arrows of light? I've been doing some good work. Where's my tunic, bro?